My name is Victoria Washington. I'm 53 years old, and I want you to remember one thing. When your 14-year-old grandson, pale as a ghost, whispers that he saw his mother, who went missing a week ago, walk into your bedroom in the middle of the night, you either start losing your mind or someone really wants you to think you are. I grabbed my grandson's hand and ran out of my own house in the dead of night without looking back, my heart pounding, with only one thought in my head. If I'm not insane, then something far worse is happening. The story I'm about to tell you isn't about ghosts. It's about how easily reality can blur into madness when the people you trust most decide it's time to destroy you. July 26th began deceptively calm. The phone call around noon didn't seem ominous, just my son's name on the screen, a sight that always warmed my heart with that illogical maternal joy. "Marcus, sweetheart," I smiled, setting aside my papers. But instead of his usual cheerful greeting, there was only silence, heavy and taut, and something inside me tensed in warning. "Mom." Just one word, but it sounded as if he were standing on the edge of a cliff. His voice was stretched tight, and I recognized that deep, measured breathing he always did when he was nervous. "What's wrong, darling?" Every maternal instinct in me switched on at once, picking up every shade of fear in his tone. "Nothing," he said, unconvincing even to himself. After a pause, "It's just, Alicia and I are flying to Colorado tomorrow. Anniversary trip. I wanted to say goodbye." Goodbye, too final a word for a week's vacation. I brushed off the unease, telling myself I was overthinking. "That's wonderful." "You two haven't had a trip alone in ages." I tried to sound warm to smooth over the strange tension. "And don't worry about Malik. I'll love having him here." "Thanks, Mom." The silence that followed felt heavy, like he was gathering the courage to say something important, something that weighed on him. And I waited, giving him space. "Mom." He exhaled finally, and there was something fragile, almost childlike in his voice. "Tell me the truth. Are you proud of me?" The air froze in my lungs. I felt how much that question demanded honesty, the kind I couldn't give. Between us, there had always been a fracture. My disappointment in his business decisions, his resentment over my refusal to give him more control in the company. "Marcus, you're my son," I said carefully, balancing between truth and kindness. "And I love you more than anything. You're a good man, a devoted father." "That's not an answer." His voice dropped lower, tinged with quiet despair, as if he already knew what I'd say. "Forget it. Doesn't matter." "Marcus, wait." But the line went dead, and the dial tone sounded like a verdict. The next morning, Alicia sent a photo from the airport with a short message. "Don't worry, we'll be back soon." There was something odd in those words, a hidden note. But I ignored the feeling. 2 peaceful days passed with Malik. On the 3rd, during a meeting, my phone rang from an unknown number. "Mrs. Washington? Sheriff Daniels, Boulder County, Colorado." The world froze. A cold wave ran down my spine. "I'm very sorry," he said slowly, choosing his words like a bomb technician. "Your son and his wife didn't return from their hike. We found their belongings near a cliff, signs of a struggle or a fall, but no bodies. The search continues, but the circumstances are concerning. Signs of struggle, but no bodies." Those words kept looping in my mind, refusing to make sense. At home, Malik was curled up on the couch, his eyes wide with terror. "Grandma," his voice trembled. "Is it true?" I knelt in front of him, cupped his cold face in my hands, and spoke with a conviction I didn't feel. "Malik, listen to me. The police are searching right now. Maybe they're just lost. Maybe they're hurt and can't call. I promise. I'll do everything I can to find them." He buried his face in my shoulder and sobbed, shaking uncontrollably. I held him, whispering comfort that meant nothing. The following days were a blur of travel to Colorado, police briefings, and standing at the edge of that cliff, where the river raged below, cold and merciless. I tried to imagine my son's final moments, but my mind refused to create the images. After a week of searching, under these conditions, the chances of finding them alive are extremely low, said the sheriff, with that cautious compassion they teach law enforcement. We'll keep the case open, but the active phase must end. On the drive home, Darius finally voiced what had been haunting him. Victoria, a month before the trip, Marcus increased his life insurance to $2 million. Beneficiaries, Alicia and Malik. And if Alicia's gone too, everything goes to the boy. You'd be his guardian. I wanted to find an innocent explanation, but my mind was already connecting the dots. Are you proud of me? Alicia's strange message, the new insurance policy. At home, Malik greeted me with that same distant stare. They didn't find them, did they? His voice was oddly flat, almost emotionless. No, sweetheart, but they're still looking. They're dead, he cut me off calmly. I know. I can feel it. I pulled him into my arms, but he sat motionless, unresponsive. Now it's just you and me, I whispered. But I promise, you'll never be alone. A long pause. Then softly, yes, Grandma. Now it's just you. Something in the way he said it made me freeze, not sadness, not fear, but a chilling finality, as if he were repeating a line he already understood too well. I looked into his face and saw in his eyes something knowing, something far too adult for a boy who'd just lost his parents. I'll go to my room, he said slowly, like an actor following a script. I'm really tired. That night, I lay awake in the dark, and his words, "Now it's just you," echoed in my mind. Not as comfort, but as a warning of something I didn't yet understand, but had already begun to fear. Malik moved in the next day. I remember how he stood in the doorway of his new room with a single suitcase, staring into the empty space with eyes that held nothing. No tears, no fear, just that hollow stillness, more frightening than any cry. For the first few days, he was a shadow in my house. He'd appear for breakfast, eat in silence, answer with one-word replies, then vanish into his room until the next meal, slipping away from any attempt at closeness, as if every word physically hurt him. On the third night, I woke to a sound, the faint creak of a floorboard in the hallway, sharp and loud in the dead quiet. I lay there, heart hammering, telling myself it was just the old house settling, that wood shifts with temperature, that I was just nervous. But then came footsteps, slow, careful, deliberate, as if someone was trying not to be heard. They passed my door and moved toward Marcus's room, the one I had kept untouched. I got up, my hands trembling, and stepped into the hallway. It was empty. The soft light of the night lamp made the familiar space look foreign, threatening. And then I saw it. Marcus's door was slightly open. I always kept it closed. It was my way of preserving his space, of pretending that as long as the door stayed shut, he still somehow existed inside. I peeked in, expecting to see Malik, or something that would explain the open door. But the room was empty, frozen in moonlight. I closed it and went back to bed, convincing myself I must have forgotten to shut it properly. But I didn't sleep again that night. I just lay there, listening to every sound, realizing I was starting to lose my grip on what was real. In the morning, Ruby, my housekeeper, stood in the kitchen doorway watching me with that cautious sympathy people reserve for someone on the verge of breaking. "Mrs. Washington," she said carefully, choosing her words, "you look exhausted. Maybe you should see a doctor. In this state, you're only hurting yourself." Ruby, I gripped my cup, feeling the porcelain's warmth anchoring me to reality. When you left last night, did you notice anything strange? She hesitated, and that hesitation told me enough. I'm not sure I should even say this, she began, but when I was leaving, I looked back and saw a shadow in the upstairs window, in your son's room, like someone was standing there looking down. Then quickly, but it was probably just Malik. Poor boy wanders at night. It's normal after what happened. A chill crawled down my spine because I had checked that room myself, and it was empty. That evening, I found Alicia's perfume bottle on my nightstand, the expensive French scent I kept in her room, untouched since her disappearance. It hadn't been there that morning. The smell hit me instantly, sweet, familiar, and for a fleeting moment, it felt like she'd just walked past me. Malik, I called, stepping into the hall with the bottle shaking in my hand. These are your mother's. Did you bring them in here by mistake? He appeared in the doorway, pale and wary. He looked at the bottle as if seeing it for the first time, then slowly shook his head. No, I didn't even know you had it. Then, after a pause, with careful concern in his voice, Grandma, are you okay? The question hit me like a slap, because I realized he was starting to think the same thing I feared myself, that I was losing my mind. That night, while tucking him into bed, I forced myself to ask, Sweetheart, you don't walk around the house at night, do you? He turned to face the wall, shoulders tense. No. Are you sure? Because if you're scared or lonely, I said no. Sharper this time. The wall between us, solid and impenetrable. Then he turned back, and there was so much pain in his eyes that I went silent. Grandma, he whispered, voice trembling. Do you believe in ghosts? The question hung in the air, heavy, cold, unnerving. Why do you ask? I managed, keeping my voice steady. He shrugged, still turned away. I just had a dream, like Mom and Dad are still here, walking around the house. I kissed his forehead and left, but his question wouldn't leave me. That night I went to bed determined not to sleep, to stay alert, but exhaustion won, and I sank into a restless haze of nightmares. I woke with a jolt to that primal sense of someone else being there, that raw, instinctive fear that hits before the mind catches up. Footsteps, again, in the hallway. I opened the door quietly and looked out, and I saw her, a woman's silhouette at the end of the corridor, turned away. The same height as Alicia, with long hair cascading down her shoulders. She stood motionless. Something about the tilt of her head, the shape of her posture, was painfully familiar. Alicia! The name tore out of me like a plea. The figure stirred. And for a second, I thought she'd turn, that I'd see her face, that this nightmare would finally end. But instead, she vanished. Not ran, not faded. One moment there, the next, gone, like a trick of the light or the mind. I stood there, shaking, heart hammering in my chest, and only one thought echoed in my head over and over. I'm losing my mind. Dear God, I really am losing my mind. The week blurred into a haze of sleepless nights. Every sound made me flinch. Every shadow seemed to move, and I could feel it. Control slipping, thought by thought, inch by inch. I started keeping notes, times, sounds, what I saw, trying to find a pattern. But reading them back, all I saw were the ramblings of a paranoid, exhausted woman. And the thought crept in, what if this is all in my head? What if these pages are just a record of my own collapse? One morning, Ruby rested a gentle hand on my shoulder, the kind of careful touch that feels more frightening than comforting. Mrs. Washington, please, she said softly, let me call a doctor. You're not sleeping, not eating, you keep checking things over and over. I'm afraid you'll just break. No, I snapped, sharper than I meant to, because admitting I needed help meant admitting weakness. And I'm Victoria Washington. I've always held everything together. I've always been strong. I'm fine. Just tired. It'll pass. But I saw it in her eyes, that cautious pity, the look people give to something fragile that's about to shatter. Malik grew even quieter. Sometimes I'd catch him watching me. That wary, assessing look, like he was trying to figure out how far gone I really was. On the 7th day, I was in my study pretending to read when the door opened. Malik stood there, pale, shaking, gripping the door frame as if it were the only thing keeping him upright. Malik! I jumped to my feet, the chair crashing behind me, heart pounding. What happened, sweetheart? Are you hurt? He shook his head, walked in slowly, and sank into the chair, moving like someone recovering from a wound. I knelt in front of him, took his icy hands in mine, and looked into his frightened eyes. Talk to me, Malik. Please. You can tell me anything. I won't judge. I just need to understand. He was silent for a long time, gathering the courage to speak, and then, in a trembling whisper, Grandma, last night, I saw Mom. Time stopped. Cold fear locked around my chest. What? The word came out hoarse. What do you mean, sweetheart? You dreamed it? He shook his head violently and tears spilling down his cheeks. No, I wasn't asleep. I woke up because I heard something and I looked into the hallway and I saw her. Mom was walking down the hall in the same blue dress she wore when they left. She stopped by your door, Grandma, and she went inside. I saw her. I swear. His words hit like blows. And I didn't know what terrified me more, that he might have actually seen someone, or that both of us were losing our minds, or that someone was using him, to drive me there. Malik, listen to me, I said softly, gripping his hands tighter. You miss your mother, that's normal. And sometimes, when we're exhausted or scared, the mind shows us what we want to see. I didn't imagine it, he shouted, tearing his hands free, his voice cracking with desperation. I know what I saw. The way she walked, the way she held her head, it was her. She was here last night. I looked into his tear-filled eyes and knew he believed it. Every word. And that left only two possibilities. Either we were both losing touch with reality, or something real, something dangerous, was happening. The decision came instantly, pure instinct. I stood up, grabbed his hand. We're leaving, I said, my voice steady though my body trembled. Right now. Go pack, just the essentials. Phone, charger, 2 minutes. He blinked, confusion giving way to relief, the kind that comes when someone finally believes you. Where are we going? Doesn't matter, I said, stuffing my bag with shaking hands. Away from here. Just trust me. 5 minutes later, we were in the car. I didn't look back, just held Malik's hand as we ran, adrenaline drowning out every other thought. He climbed into the seat, buckled up with trembling fingers. Grandma, he whispered, voice quivering. Do you believe me? Do you really think I saw her? I glanced at him, saw that fragile hope in his eyes, that desperate need to not be crazy. I don't know what you saw, Malik, I said carefully, but I know you're scared. And strange things have been happening in that house. To me, too. So the best thing we can do is get out, give ourselves space to think, to understand. At the hotel, I booked a room with 2 beds. As soon as we stepped inside, Malik collapsed onto one of them, face buried in his hands, finally letting go, sobbing until his whole body shook. I sat beside him, wrapped my arms around him, and rocked him gently, whispering the meaningless comforts that give the illusion of safety. It's okay, sweetheart. We'll figure this out. We're safe now. No one can hurt us here. He fell asleep in my arms. I tucked him in, smoothed his hair, and sat watching his tear-stained face for a long time. Then I went to the window, looked down at the city lights, at life still going on, normal and oblivious, and tried to think, if I'm not losing my mind, and I refuse to believe I am, then something real is happening. Something that has a cause, even if I can't see it yet. Someone has been in my house, someone moving things, someone who appeared to Malik as his mother, and that someone either wants to terrify us or wants us to believe we're losing our minds. But why? I lay down on the bed, still dressed, phone clutched in my hand, ready to call the police at the first sound. And I thought, if someone really is trying to break me, they've almost succeeded. Almost. Because now I know I'm not alone in this. Malik saw something too. And that means either we're both victims of the same hallucination, or someone is deliberately using my grandson to destroy me. But who? And why? The answers were out there, waiting in the dark. But for now, in this anonymous hotel room with Malik sleeping beside me, I let myself close my eyes and breathe. 3 days in the hotel passed in a haze of fear and uncertainty. I tried to force myself to think rationally, to analyze with a clear mind, but every time my thoughts hit the same wall, what if I really am losing my mind? On the 4th morning, I sat down with a notebook and forced myself to lay everything out in order. A timeline, facts, what happened and when. And that's when I saw it. A pattern I hadn't noticed before. Something that didn't start with Marcus's disappearance, but much earlier. I closed my eyes and let the memories surface. Marcus had started changing about 6 months ago. Distant, cold, withdrawn. He stopped dropping by the office just to chat, and when I asked if something was wrong, he brushed it off with, "Just tired." Too much work. But the real memory, the one that burned, was from 3 years earlier. Marcus had come to me with a business proposal. He'd clearly worked on it for weeks. Slides, charts, projections, and he asked me to give him more control in the company, essentially, to make him an equal partner. I remember turning the pages of his presentation, feeling my disappointment grow. The ideas were naive, emotional rather than strategic. If I said yes, I knew we'd lose everything within a year. "Marcus, sweetheart," I said, trying to sound kind but firm, "I can see you've put a lot of effort into this, and I appreciate it. But these plans are too risky, too optimistic. In business, you can't bet everything on the best-case scenario." I saw his face go pale, his jaw tighten, his eyes fill with hurt and humiliation. "So what you're saying," he said quietly, the restraint in his voice more dangerous than anger, "is that I'm not good enough, that after all these years I still haven't earned your trust. You're a good manager, Marcus," I tried to reason, "but running the entire company is a different level of responsibility. You need more time, more experience." "More time," he repeated with a bitter smile. "I'm 33, Mom. How much more time do I need? Until I'm 40? 50? Or will you just never hand over control? Because you can't stand the thought of anyone else making the decisions." His words stung like a slap, and I felt anger rising. "That's not fair, and you know it," I said, standing. "I built this company from nothing. I'm not risking everything because you want to play visionary. Good intentions aren't enough." He stared at me for a long moment, and I saw it happen, like glass cracking behind his eyes. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm, detached. "I see. Then maybe I should look for opportunities elsewhere, because clearly I'm wasting my time here." He left, slamming the door. We eventually made peace, or at least pretended to. But something fundamental had shifted. After that, he was polite but cold, professional but distant, and now, staring at my notes, I couldn't shake the thought. What if that resentment had been festering all this time, turning into something darker? I called Darius. He arrived an hour later, briefcase in hand, concern etched across his face. "Victoria, what's going on?" he asked, sitting opposite me. "You sound off." "I need your help," I said, leaning forward. "Check Marcus's finances." "Everything. Accounts, transfers, loans, the last 6 months. Look for anything strange, large withdrawals, odd transactions, anything that doesn't fit." He studied me for a moment, torn between ethics and loyalty. Then he nodded. "All right. Give me a couple of days." When he finally called back, his voice was cautious, like someone afraid of what they'd found. "Victoria, I found something. We need to talk." At the cafe, he laid a folder on the table. "Last month, Marcus withdrew $50,000 in cash," he said quietly, leaning in. "And for the past 3 months, he's been transferring money to an offshore account, about $100,000 total." My blood ran cold. For what? Did he have debts? "I didn't find any," Darius said, shaking his head. "But there's more." A week before the trip, Marcus met with a private investigator. A detective? Why? Darius hesitated, and I knew whatever came next would hurt. I called him. At first, he wouldn't talk, but when I mentioned Marcus was gone. He paused, then continued, "Victoria, your son hired him to find out how to have someone legally declared mentally incompetent, what documents are required, what the process is, how guardianship works." The world tilted. Like the deck of a ship in a storm, Marcus had been researching how to have someone declared legally unfit. A month before his disappearance, a week before increasing his life insurance. "It could be a coincidence," Darius said gently, taking my hand. "Maybe he was helping someone in Alicia's family." But his eyes said something else. They said what my mind was already screaming. What if it wasn't an accident? What if Marcus planned something? That night, lying awake in the dark, I couldn't stop the loop. The numbers, the meetings, his last words. "Are you proud of me?" They all sounded different now. What if my son had planned something terrible? What if I had been too blind to see what he was becoming? And the most terrifying question of all, if Marcus really did plan something and if he's still alive. What is he doing in my house at night? The next day, I asked Darius to access Marcus's home computer. When he came back with a flash drive, the look on his face told me everything. He'd found something he wished he hadn't. "Victoria," he began, sitting across from me, choosing his words carefully like a man defusing a bomb. "I found messages between Marcus and Alicia. They used a shared draft folder in their email. Probably thought it was safer that way." He opened his laptop and turned it toward me. Lines of text filled the screen. Words never meant for my eyes. The first message was from Alicia, dated 4 months ago. Her tone was calm, controlled, but the anger underneath was unmistakable. "Marcus, we can't go on like this. You see, she'll never give up control. How many more years are you going to work for her, taking scraps? We have to act, and soon." I heard her talking to her lawyer about changing the will. Every sentence cut deep. There was such cold calculation in her words, so unlike the gentle, accommodating woman I thought I knew. The next message was even more insistent. "Time's running out, Marcus. If she changes the will, we lose everything. You've sacrificed your whole life for her, and what did you get? Constant doubt, constant judgment. It's time to take what's yours." I couldn't breathe. My eyes were locked on the screen, watching a betrayal unfold, word by word. A conspiracy, written by the woman I had trusted. "That's not all," Darius said quietly. 2 months ago, Alicia took out a loan, $30,000, using her jewelry as collateral. The money's gone, no trace. The pieces began to fit together. Alicia, the architect, manipulating Marcus, feeding his resentment, turning my own son against me. But then I remembered something. Chanel, Alicia's best friend. I called her the next day and we met in a quiet restaurant. "Mrs. Washington," Chanel said softly as she sat down, her face pale, almost frightened. "I still can't believe they're gone." "Chanel, I need your complete honesty," I said, leaning in. "In the last few months, did Alicia ever mention money? My control over the company? Anything like that?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Yes. The past couple of years, she complained that you kept Marcus in the shadows, that you never let him prove himself. She said they lived paycheck to paycheck when they could have lived so differently. She thought it was unfair, that Marcus deserved more." The words confirmed my worst fears. But then Chanel added something that made my pulse stop. "Lately, though, she changed," she said. "She was scared. Nervous. I asked what was wrong, but she brushed it off. Still, I could tell something was bothering her. It felt like someone was pressuring her, like she was afraid of something but wouldn't admit it. That didn't fit the portrait of a cold manipulator. For the first time, doubt crept in. "There was one time, maybe 3 months ago," Chanel continued, thinking hard. "She mentioned someone Marcus worked with. A woman. Tisha, I think. Alicia said something like that Tisha thinks too highly of herself. But when I asked what she meant, she changed the subject. Tisha, Marcus's business partner for the last 2 years. Ambitious, sharp, the one he'd insisted on hiring against my advice. I'd never fully trusted her. Something about her smile had always felt calculated. What about Alicia's loan?" I pressed gently. "Did she say what she needed the money for?" Chanel went pale. She said it was urgent, that she had to fix something, a problem she'd gotten herself into. I offered to help, but she refused, said she had it under control, that soon everything would be fine. Tears welled in her eyes. But she didn't look fine. She looked terrified. I left that meeting with my mind spinning. On one side, the emails, the plotting, the deception. On the other, a frightened woman, taking out secret loans, glancing over her shoulder. A victim, maybe, but of whom? And what did Tisha have to do with any of it? That night, I made a decision. I had to go back to the house. But this time, I wouldn't be a helpless target. The next morning, I called Darius. "I need your help installing hidden cameras in the house," I said, my voice steady. "I want to record everything that happens at night, every sound, every movement." "Are you sure?" he asked, his tone full of worry. "Victoria, if someone really is trying to hurt you, that's exactly why I need proof," I cut in. "If they want me to think I'm losing my mind, let them. I'll play along, but this time I'll know the truth, and I'll have it on video." By evening, the cameras were installed. Tiny, invisible eyes in the hallways, living room, my bedroom. Everywhere something strange could happen. "The footage goes straight to a cloud server," Darius explained. "Even if they find the cameras, the data's safe." We returned to the house that night. Each familiar step echoed with tension. The air thick with memory and dread. The house felt alive, watching. "If you're alive, Marcus," I whispered into the darkness, knowing every word was being recorded. "If you're here, if you can hear me, know this. I will find you. Whatever you're planning, I will stop it." Only silence answered me. But in that silence, I felt it, a pulse in the air, like the moment before a storm. And I knew then, the game had only just begun. The following days, I played the hardest role of my life. That of a woman breaking under the weight of grief, losing her grip on reality. And with each morning, it became harder to tell where the act ended and the truth began. I forgot things on purpose, repeated questions to Ruby, mixed up dates, and I watched the worry in her eyes grow into genuine fear. "Mrs. Washington," she said one morning, her voice cautious, laced with pity, "maybe I should call one of your friends? Someone who can stay with you?" "No, Ruby," I answered, with the perfect touch of confusion. "I just haven't been sleeping." "It'll pass." That was exactly what I needed, for everyone to believe that the indestructible Victoria Washington had finally cracked. On the fourth night, one of the cameras picked up movement, a figure in the hallway at 2:34 a.m. The face was always turned away, but that was enough. I wasn't losing my mind. Someone was really in the house. The next morning, I went into the garden and saw freshly disturbed earth under the oak tree. My hands were trembling as I dug through it and pulled out Alicia's gym bag. Blue Nike, white stripes, her clothes folded neatly inside, and on top, a note. "I'm sorry." I sat there on the cold ground staring at it, my mind racing through a single terrifying possibility. What if Alicia was dead, and Marcus killed her, and now he was trying to drive me insane? That evening, Malik appeared in my doorway, pale, shaking, leaning against the frame for support. "Grandma, I need to tell you something." He closed the door behind him, his voice cracking. I was so scared to say it before, but I can't keep it in anymore. "Dad came to me last night." My heart stopped. "He sat on my bed," Malik went on, tears spilling down his cheeks. At first I thought I was dreaming, but his hand, it was warm. He said everything would be okay, that Mom's alive, that they're doing this for my own good, that you're sick, Grandma, that you're losing your mind, that I shouldn't trust you, because soon they'll come for me, and we'll all be together again, and we'll finally have everything we ever wanted. I wrapped my arms around him, holding him as he sobbed uncontrollably. "Malik, listen to me," I said, cupping his face in my hands, forcing him to meet my eyes. "I am not sick. There's nothing wrong with my mind, though your father would love for everyone to believe that. He's alive, Malik, and he's planning something terrible, something that will hurt many people, including you. But I swear, with every ounce of love I have for you, I will stop him. I will protect you. We will survive this. Do you believe me?" He searched my face for a long moment, searching for cracks, for madness. And then I saw it. The moment he decided, "Yes," he whispered, his voice trembling but resolute. "I believe you, Grandma. Only you." That night, I reviewed the footage again, every second, every frame, until I found it. 2 figures in the hallway, whispering close enough for the mic to catch fragments. I turned the volume all the way up, closed my eyes, and listened. Marcus's voice, unmistakable even in a whisper. "You need to be careful. She's smarter than we thought. Might have installed cameras." And then, a woman's voice, calm, cold, controlled. "I'm doing everything right. Just a little longer, and she'll sign the papers." Malik's already doubting her. The plan's working perfectly. But that voice, it wasn't Alicia's, not even close. I replayed it over and over, analyzing every inflection, every syllable. And with each listen, the truth grew clearer. The voice was lower, sharper, different rhythm, different cadence. And I knew it, Tisha. Everything fell into place. Brutally, perfectly. Marcus and Tisha had planned this together. Alicia found out, tried to handle it herself, took out the loan. Tisha must have silenced her, maybe threatened Malik, and when Alicia became too much of a risk, they staged the accident in the mountains. The realization hit like ice. My son, my own son, had become capable of murder, of destroying his wife, his mother, his family, for money, for control. The pain was so sharp I could barely breathe, but I couldn't fall apart. Not now, not when I was this close to the end. Not when Malik's life and Alicia's justice depended on me. I grabbed my phone, my hands shaking, and called Darius. It was 4 a.m. He answered, voice rough with sleep. "Victoria." "What's wrong?" "Darius, I have a plan," I said, speaking fast, each word like a strike. "But I need witnesses. Today. A notary, a psychologist, anyone from the board, people with spotless reputations, people a court would trust. Can you make that happen?" "Victoria, are you sure you know what you're doing?" "For the first time since that call from Colorado," I said, and it was the purest truth. "I am completely sure. Just trust me. One more day, Darius, one more day, and this nightmare ends." I hung up and turned toward the window. My reflection stared back, hollow-eyed, exhausted, but unbroken. There was something in my face I hadn't seen in a long time. "Resolve. The game's over," I whispered. "Today, you'll find out what it means to play against Victoria Washington, to underestimate a woman who's walked through hell and survived." The day of reckoning began with that unmistakable feeling, the one that comes before a decisive battle, when every nerve is strung tight, when every second feels stretched into eternity, when you know the next few hours will decide everything, and there's no room for a single mistake. I woke at 6, put on my dark navy suit, the same one I'd worn to sign the biggest contracts of my career, applied makeup for the first time in weeks, and stared into the mirror at the woman who would fight and win the most important battle of her life. By 10, Darius confirmed that everyone had agreed to come: notary James Collins, psychologist Dr. Sarah Williams, and 2 business partners, Robert Chen and Patricia Johnson, people whose word carried real weight. "They'll be there at 4, just as you asked," Darius said, tension in his voice. "Victoria, are you sure they'll show up?" "They've waited too long for this chance," I replied. "They'll come. I guarantee it." Then I sent the message to Marcus. "I can't do this anymore. I give up. Today at 4 p.m., I'll sign everything. Guardianship, company control, whatever you need. Please. Let's just end this." By 4, everyone was gathered in the living room. I began with just the right tremor in my voice, the sound of a woman broken. "Thank you all for coming," I said quietly. "The last few weeks have been difficult, and I've realized I can't handle the company anymore. The responsibility, the stress. I want to transfer management and legal guardianship to others, and I'd like this to be properly witnessed." "Victoria, are you sure this is what you want?" Robert asked gently. "It's a serious decision." "I've already decided," I said with weary conviction. At 4:15, the doorbell rang, and time seemed to slow. That single heartbeat between past and future. Ruby opened the door, and there they stood, Marcus, alive, immaculate in a tailored suit, that confident smile on his lips, and beside him, Tisha, elegant in black, her cold eyes glinting with triumph. The room fell silent. "Marcus!" Robert rose, voice filled with disbelief. "But we thought you were dead. What's going on?" Marcus stepped in with the poise of a man used to winning. "Apologies for the drama," he said smoothly. "There was a mix-up in Colorado. Alicia and I got lost on a hike. We were fine, but out of range for days. She decided to stay there to recover, but I came back as soon as I heard my mother needed help." The lie flowed effortlessly. If I hadn't known the truth, I might have believed it myself. Tisha stood close beside him, one hand resting on his shoulder in a perfect imitation of concern. "Mrs. Washington," she said, her tone politely cold, "I've brought all the necessary documents for the power of attorney, guardianship, and medical consent. Everything's prepared. You just need to sign." She laid the stack of papers in front of me. Her fingers trembled slightly. Anticipation disguised as professionalism. Marcus crouched beside me, took my hand. His touch was warm, familiar. "Mom," he said softly, eyes full of feigned compassion, "I know this is hard for you to admit, But you can see it, can't you? You're not well. You forget things, hear voices, lose track of time. Malik told us how scared he is, how worried. His grip tightened, the pressure beneath the tenderness. Sign the papers, Mom. Please, let us take care of you. You'll have the best doctors, the best care. You'll finally be able to rest. I looked at that face, the one I had once loved more than life itself, and saw nothing human left in it, only greed and the cold readiness to betray. I took a long breath. Then I rose, slowly, deliberately, forcing Marcus to step back, and I felt the air in the room shift. I'm afraid this meeting isn't quite what you expected, I said, my voice cutting through the silence. Steady, sharp, commanding. Darius. Show them. He tapped his tablet. On the screen, the footage began to play. 2 silhouettes in the hallway, their voices echoing through the living room. You need to be careful. She's smarter than we thought. I'm doing everything right. Just a little longer, and she'll sign the papers. Malik's already doubting her. The plan's working perfectly. Marcus's face drained of color. His pupils widened. He stumbled back a step, the mask cracking, panic flickering through his eyes. Tisha's composure wavered. Her hands trembled slightly. That proves nothing, she snapped. Recordings can be faked. Any expert could. Perhaps, I interrupted, but I'm afraid there's something else that's a little harder to explain. I nodded to Darius. He opened the door to the adjoining room, and out stepped Malik, holding the hand of Alicia. Alive. Pale, bruised, her eyes red from crying, but alive. Supported by her son, she stood trembling yet unbroken. Marcus froze. The blood drained from his face as if pulled by gravity. He stumbled backward, shock and raw, animal fear twisting his features. No, he gasped, voice breaking. That's impossible. You were supposed to... How did you, Tisha darted toward the door, but Darius blocked the exit. Moments later, 2 police officers stepped into the living room. Alicia took a shaky step forward. Her voice was hoarse, fragile, but carried the steel of someone who'd stopped running. I'm sorry, Victoria, she said quietly, eyes fixed on the floor. They blackmailed me. Tisha found something from my past, something she could use to destroy me. She said she'd ruin my name, take Malik away if I didn't do what they said. I tried to fight back. I even took out a loan to pay for help, but Tisha found out. Then they started threatening Malik. Her voice cracked. In the mountains, I tried to run. Tried to get to the police, but Marcus caught me, and that's when I realized he was capable of anything. Shut up, Marcus roared, the sound raw, animal. Shut your mouth! You ruined everything. The plan was working. She was ready to give up. And you ruined it. Alicia finally looked at him, and the pain in her eyes was unbearable. I was trying to protect our son, Marcus. To protect your mother. You tried to kill me. You were going to push me off that cliff. I saw it in your eyes. Marcus turned on me, his face twisted, eyes wild. All my life, he screamed, voice breaking. All my life, I was nothing next to you. You never let me breathe, never trusted me, always pulling the strings. I worked like a dog while you sat on your throne. The money, the company, it should have been mine. I'm your only son, and you treated me like an employee. He took a step toward me. The officers tensed. I hated you, he shouted, spit flying. Do you hear me? I hated every single day under your control. Every look that told me I'd never be good enough. Silence, heavy, suffocating. Pain pressed against my ribs like a fist. Marcus, I said softly, my voice breaking, but steady. You were my son. I loved you more than my own life. Yes, maybe I was too strict, too controlling, and for that, I'm sorry. But what you did, the manipulation, the lies, the cruelty, that was your choice, and choices have consequences. I nodded to the officers. The handcuffs clicked around his wrists, and I saw it, that moment of collapse when he understood it was over. Tisha didn't resist. She just stood there, silent, face expressionless. Dr. Williams and the notary quickly drew up their reports. A formal statement of my mental competence and evidence of Marcus and Tisha's fraud attempt. As the officers led Marcus away, he turned to look at me one last time. In that gaze was everything: hatred, regret, pain, confusion. "You were my son," I said quietly, "and a part of you always will be. But I don't know who you are anymore." The door closed, and the house fell silent, louder than all the shouting that had filled it moments before. Alicia came closer, tears streaming down her face. "Forgive me, Victoria," she whispered, "for not coming to you sooner. I thought I could fix it alone, but I only made it worse." I pulled her into my arms. Two women who'd survived the same storm, holding on to each other, to the faint promise of peace. "You're a victim, just like me," I murmured. "Now we heal, one day at a time." Malik joined us, wrapping his small arms around both of us. The three of us stood there, survivors, in a house that had witnessed so much pain, yet somehow still held the possibility of healing. 6 months later, I sit in my office finishing this story. Marcus is serving 15 years. Tisha, 12. Alicia received probation. Malik lives with us now. We're learning to be a family again, to rebuild from the wreckage. I sold part of the company. For years, I clung to control out of fear, and in doing so, almost lost something far more precious: my sanity and my grandson. I visit Marcus once a month. It's my pain, my burden. He's still my son, and I love him with that broken kind of love that never heals completely. But forgiveness is something I can't yet give. People ask me, "How did you know?" And I tell them, I simply asked myself, who benefits from me believing I'm losing my mind? Once I had that answer, everything else fell into place. Because sometimes the monsters that destroy us aren't the ones lurking in the dark. They're the ones we raise, the ones we love, the ones who wear familiar faces. That's my story. And I warned you, it's not for the faint of heart.